Hello, hello, Shagat the Known here. Welcome back to Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Today is the 15th of May, 2023. Local time is 10:56. We're doing this offline. It's not a stream, but hey, that's my intro, so I do it. This is intended to be a bit of a post-mortem for my project, if you will, of replaying the entire Metal Gear Solid series, minus Portable Ops, I guess. It's just a way to kind of get some last thoughts out there and kind of put a bow on it. And yeah, I also have done something. This is my first time launching the game, but I swapped over to my old save data. 100% completion, we can see in the corner. Let's see what happens when I hit continue. We're just gonna play around a little bit here while I ramble on about some various topics. I'm just here in the middle of Afghanistan. Who are you? Why do I know about you?
Analysis complete.
Weird. Adamska. There actually seems to be a lot of things that I don't have unlocked, which I find interesting. I thought I would have already had all of this.
Please specify a project.
Some of this may have been added since my original playthrough. That would be my guess here. Right, because my original playthrough was on the launch version of the game. And this save file was dated 2016, I believe. Like April or something of 2016. So it's very likely that things have been added to the game that I simply don't have, which is ironic considering this is 100% completion, yet it has fewer things than the stream that I just did. It's missing objects, rather. Sneaking suit the boss. So we can easily go ahead and just start running through these. And I'll try to keep a stream of consciousness going as I talk about some things. I really have a couple things in mind of what I want to talk about here, but I'm going to go a little bit backwards first and talk about this game and just kind of where we left off and part of my reasoning for doing this. And it really comes down to... Look how 0. Interesting. It really comes down to wanting to maybe showcase a little bit of stuff that I... Hold on one second. Okay, this is good. I have quite a lot of room in my base here, don't I? Better than the stream one. Let's check it out. So we can see that I have 2 full FOBs, and I began work on a 3rd, but never really finished it. And then I never bought the 4th. So definitely a lot different than what I had going on the stream game, where I just kind of gave up on these at some point. I'm going to pass on doing anything with that right now. Alright, so we'll wander around a little bit as I get my bearings and kind of start us off on this little post-mortem here. My thinking, again, was something along the lines of, there's a lot of stuff I didn't really get to show off. Rather, I never got around to showing off. And it's true that that's really on me. I could have used weapons and equipment and characters and such that have been available for quite a while, but I have a playstyle that I like to generally stick to, and I don't really want to modify that too much. So that's kind of the reasoning, partially, that I wanted to do a little bit more gameplay here, so I could load up some alternative stuff. It's probably going to be less about weapons, more about some equipment. So the first thing I want to check is, what equipment do I have on me? Because you just saw me load this in. Not much there. We have capture cages. I do have stealth camo. So we have 2 of these. I don't know. difference in its short bursts, and this one's the battery one. Okay. So yeah, we're able to straight up run around in our stealth camo. Have a little bit of fun with these guys. Are you any good? Oh! He synced me. Alrighty. So now, does he... Oh, he can still see me. Okay, so stealth camo's not perfect. Got it. As, you know, to be fair, it probably shouldn't be. There we are. Dude, they are terrified. Alrighty. So we're off to a great start here. Now this is something that... Oh, he woke up. Okay, I said I was going to try to maintain a stream of consciousness and have some level of coherent thought, but I seem to be failing at that right now. No, it's okay. We'll get there. Alright, so this is something I wanted to do yesterday, for instance. I actually loaded myself up with stealth camo and the parasite suit, which I... Oh, I do have one equipped. Why is it not available right now? Am I empty on something? That's actually interesting. It doesn't seem... It might be because I'm in an alert. I still seem to be unable to use that. We'll look into it a little bit more. But I loaded myself up with stuff like that yesterday, and I completely forgot to give it a try. So I thought that would be a fun thing to show off. And just in general, kind of showcase a little bit of what it might look like when you have 100%. Although, again, there are some developments I'm missing because I believe they just weren't a thing back when the game came out and I did my original 100% run. So, that's, again, kind of interesting that this is a higher percentage, but it's missing things from what I streamed and from what's in the series. Which makes me kind of glad I'm doing this just so I can get a few developments done, but I don't think I'll ever do everything anytime soon, at least. One of the things is that in order to get 100%, we have to do a lot of very repetitive things. They're not particularly difficult, but we have to go through every single mission and S-rank them, and we also have to do every single objective. So let's take a look at that. You'll see here in my list, I've got, if we look at the mission tasks on the right there, and if we look at the S beside the GMP for each one, it's S. I mean, that doesn't really count because that's where Ocelot's teaching you. But every single one of these, and I will go through the list here, every single one of these is complete. I wonder why this is so little. Probably because, and I'm pretty sure this is how it happened, once the news broke that you could get quiet back, I think it was around April of 2016, I loaded up the game just to get quiet back, even though I didn't really intend on playing much more. So that's one of the last things I did, ergo that mission is not worth very much. I believe Extreme Sahelanthropus is probably not going to be worth very much either, because I think I farmed that one a bit, trying to get the S rank or something. Let's find out. No, it's actually at full value right now, so I am wrong. But we see as I go through, all of them are complete. We can take a look at my side op list here and see that we have 157 of 157. Down on the right, 100%. We're looking good there. Pretty beefy list, but I've done this on my playthrough recently, so it's not a big deal. And we have a bunch of challenge tasks that I don't believe were even available. Challenge tasks may have existed when I played this game the first time, but some of these tasks may not have been a thing. I'm not really sure when or how these were added or how they work. So, let's just go through and grab... Oh, I can't, can I? That'll be great for some development though, won't it? That's actually very good. Okay. So lots of GMP remaining, so if I actually choose to go to the base facilities again, and take a look at the FOB, maybe it would be worth doing something.
Commencing platform construction. Commencing platform construction. Commencing platform.
Do I plan on doing them all? Probably not, but hey, it's kind of nice.
Commencing platform construction.
So we're out of GMP basically, but I have plenty of GMP to get from here. Let's go. And we're just about full. That's pretty ridiculous. I like it. So now the unfortunate reality of spending all my PF points also means that I don't really have any to spend now, do I? Because yeah, they're not tied. They're tied to your account, not your save file. So I'm a little short on those, so getting S++ dudes is not really going to work. But, you know, it is what it is. Postmaster General. No, Postmaster. Like it. I like it. Alright, so we had to do those. We also had to do the animals, which are not terribly difficult. Something here is new in the database. See, I don't remember even seeing a fox. So that was probably one that we had to catch with a cage. And you just never got to see. If you use quiet to achieve great victories, you get butterfly. Cool. So we had to catch all the animals, we had to do all the missions and stuff. I mean, I think we've kind of covered everything for the most part. Why do I have cassette tapes? Is it music? Is it something in here? Did I never listen to these? I know I've heard these. That's weird, because I know I've listened to these before. It might be something where I didn't get the save. There's a challenge task. Weird. I somehow didn't do that. But I know I had heard them before. I'm not sure how I heard them without... whatever. How odd. So that doesn't count towards your percentage, obviously. Let's call in a helicopter and let's get out of here.
Support helicopter requested.
And let's change the loadout a little bit and have a little bit of fun with things. And then from there, I'll start doing the proper post-mortem and kind of breaking down the series a little bit. I do want to say, though, one thing that's going to be interesting here, one thing that I do find interesting, is this is a very interesting game to 100% because in a lot of ways it feels very empty. Many open world games have a gameplay loop where you can still kind of keep playing and it still is pretty fun. I'm not saying this game gets boring, but in a lot of ways it seems as if there's not much to do once you hit 100%, right? You've done all the missions with all the mission tasks, you've done all the side ops. What real incentive is there to keep playing? Unless you're really hooked on building the base up and doing the online components, which I get some people are, but unless you're really hooked on that, there's very little to feel like motivates you in the open world itself, which is kind of odd, but it could also be intentional. I don't want to, you know, go too overboard and overanalyze things, but a lot of people like to talk about the meta-analysis of this game, the phantom pain, and how that can extend to the player themselves, like losing quiet is an example of that phantom pain. How we can really feel that ourselves. But, you know, of course they brought that back to us, so it's whatever, right? A lot of stuff to skip through. What is that? Some big gloves. I never noticed that. What do we have in here? Cool. So this development, let me check some of this one more time before we move on. Unable to develop more, but most of these are fairly quick. It's so strange not having these things. These basic things that I got so long ago on the stream. But it's fine. I couldn't help but notice that I'm using the Renov sniper there. What is my buddy equipment?
Please specify a project.
Western tack. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Why can I do that? How does she not have these? See, I'm so confused at how this is working right now. I'm very confused.
Please specify a project.
So proud of having 100%, but it feels almost meaningless right now. Combat deployment, we had to have done that, right?
Please select a mission.
Yeah, we just have a bunch of these. You'll see I have lots of good soldiers here.
Unit dispatched. Unit
Okay.
Dispatched. Unit
Let's get my loadout
dispatched.
configured and let's just do the proper post-mortem thing now, because I feel like I'm
Unit dispatched.
wasting time and rambling and stalling, but hey, that's what we're here for.
Unit dispatched.
I still have the question of how do I deploy? Nothing in here says deploy. So I can always just go to the site op list and deploy from there, but that seems like a workaround. Does it not?
Please select a landing zone.
Alright, let's deploy right around here. I don't care about the site op in question, I just want to get out here. We're going to select equipment, and we're going to go in for the... Oh look, I have a... Is that custom? I think that's a custom Brennan, I don't know why. And this is the bad boy I've been using, so let's grab that. Where is my... Oh, that is the infinite one, good. Blast arm. This is something I meant to show. Battery, effective range, stopping power. I guess I can leave that on. I could swear... Oh, no, it's at the bottom. Yes, precision, mobility, sonar, medical. I think... So mobility is just automatic on everything. That increases your sprinting. That's something I meant to confirm and look up last night, but... when I was finishing up the session there. So we have that. Most of these are not super interesting to me. So we're done in that one. Wonder what's up with the parasite armor and why it wasn't letting me use it. This thing is pretty cool. Oh no, that one's okay. It's not the one I'm thinking. So then I guess I'll take the box. Or no, we'll take this. We'll do this here. And I don't think I need the Phantom Cigar, so I'll get the Acela Ramen. Because I never showed that off. I kept the box in case I choose to fast travel. Now, one other thing I would like to take a look at is... select character. Alright, I had to edit that out for reasons, so... There was nothing useful in there anyway, so it's not a big deal. I believe this is why I was unable to do that before. That would explain it. So... I was checking something because someone mentioned that you could play, and now it might be because she's selected as my buddy.
Deploying
But someone mentioned yesterday that you can actually play as quiet in FOB missions, and I wanted to see if that was possible to do here as well. But I didn't see... I'll try something again next time. Alright, so let me try once again to hold a train of thought and have a little bit of this post-mortem I keep alluding to, as we're only 21 minutes in. Let's see how it goes. Basically, this series is really important to me. It's been a part of my life since the 90s, since I was, I guess, 9 years old. And maybe even 8. Depends on when the demo came out. But this series has been a part of me for a very long time. And it means a lot to me. And undergoing this recent... oh, I forgot that I had changed the music. Forgot about that. When Quiet went missing, I was like, you got chopper music now. But this series shaped me in a lot of ways as a gamer. And it's, you know, meant a lot to me for a very long time. And playing through these games gives me a lot of nostalgia, of course. And sometimes nostalgia is good and bad. It was sometime late last year where I started thinking about replaying these games. Well, what I was really thinking about at the time was actually the idea of replaying this game, not the entire series. Okay, so this is stealth. I mean, this is camouflage, but it's basically stealth camo. So I was thinking about replaying the series, and this thing stays active, which is interesting. Cool. Hold on. Can we just combine the effects then? No, but we can do that. Got it. Last one, armor.
The weather will clear shortly.
Let's go test out the armor. So anyway, I was thinking about replaying this game specifically, not really the entire series, but as I considered more and more about replaying this game, I knew how big of an undertaking it would be, and I thought it would be interesting and valuable to actually go through and replay them all, basically. Oh yeah, I turned reflex off.
Enemy presence detected.
Quiet, stop being so good.
Guard post captured.
Okay,
Enemy presence
Quiet's too good. We'll run around, we'll have some fun.
updated.
And so anyway, as I said, I really wanted to replay this game specifically, and I knew this would be a big undertaking. It just took me, if you count Ground Zeroes, from the 1st of April to the 14th of May, with Saturday, Sunday streams, and the occasional double stream on some of those days. And many streams going overtime. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But it took me quite a while to finish this game alone. And, you know, I was sitting there thinking about doing the entire series. But I couldn't resist the call, right? So the more I thought about it, the more I basically said, I need to do this. You know, again, the series means a lot to me, and I think it would be great to just kind of share that with other people. I have no delusions of grandeur or anything. I know I'm not a big, giant streamer. I don't have a huge following or anything. In fact, I have many streams where there is very little interaction. And that's okay. I do this because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy, you know, just playing the game and hanging out when people are there, sharing my perspective on things, etc. That's why I'm doing it. You know, I don't really make money doing this. Occasionally somebody subscribes or somebody gives me bits or they tip. But I don't, eventually that, you know, rolls over to get, you know, a single check from Twitch a couple times a year. it's not really something I'm that concerned about, right? So I have no delusions of grandeur, but the idea of sharing this series with others, for anyone who cares, for anyone who wants to watch it, for anyone who does enjoy watching the games, and hopefully has that same passion as I do for them, I'm glad to have been able to provide that, you know, and again, that's why I do this, because I enjoy, I legitimately have fun doing this. So that's kind of what pushed me into doing the entire series, because I guess I thought, if I'm going to replay 5, well, there's no context, right? We need all these other games. This is the 5th game in a series. If I'm just bouncing into the middle of a series like this with no context, that's kind of abrupt, and there's so much story. Now again, I don't necessarily expect most people to watch my entire series. I would love if you do that, and I'd love if you gave me your thoughts, but I don't really expect that per se, but it felt right to be able to provide that context, to be able to provide that, the fullness of the series, right? So that's what pushed me in that direction, and I kept thinking about it. I had so many other things going. I have to actually think back a little bit as to what I was doing before this. Give me a moment. I know the other things I was doing around this game, but not before this game. Look at this. The big old beefy boys. Let's have some fun here. Well, that's just gonna knock him out anyway. That's not special.
Analysis complete.
So we're still just tanking everything, but it is about to run out. Bop. This is fun. I think my armor's just about worn out. Oh yeah, Quiet showed up. How did that not get him? Whatever. Oh. I knew that wasn't armor, but I was hoping to, I wanted to see if the mist would just, like, turn them into wandering puppets or something. But they got me. Okay, it's whatever. It's not a big deal either way. We're here to have fun. So, back to the topic. Cellar ramen, just to show off how it's kind of cool. I think it lasts longer than real reflex. But there's no gauge.
Map has been updated.
Yeah, strange. So, there's, I have no idea what I was playing before this, but I know I wrapped up a series, basically, and then went from that series into this. I still had other games going on at the time, which this is kind of relevant to the Post-Mortem, because it's about me. I'm gonna be narcissistic. No, it's about me, but I mean, it's about these games as well. Just bear with me. Maybe it'll make sense, maybe it won't. I have ideas in my mind, and sometimes they come to fruition, sometimes they don't. I had other things running at the same time. When I first started Metal Gear Solid, knowing this was going to be a long project, I think I actually predicted that I would finish the games in May. Essentially, when I started this, I was at a particular place as a streamer. Again, I have no delusions of grandeur. When I call myself a streamer, I am a streamer, but I'm not a professional streamer, right? It's not something I do as a job, but as someone who literally streams online, I am a streamer. Just from that sense of the word, right? I'm not saying it as if I have a massive following or anything. As a streamer, I've gone through different phases, where when I first began in 2020, Growth was pretty fast early on, and I was very consistent. I was there every day at the same time for the same amount of time. Well, not every day at the same time, I should say. I was there every day, and it was the same times on each day. So Monday through Thursday, or after work at a specific time. Friday, I never worked Fridays because we did a 4-day work week at that job. So it was at an earlier time. Saturday and Sunday were also at a similar earlier time, but Saturday was a longer stream. Typically I went for 4 hours. That's still my goal for a stream, is 4 hours. And that would be it. I was very punctual. I was there right when I said I would be, to the point where I would watch the seconds count down and hit the button as it was exactly time to start. And I would basically hit 4 hours exactly. Like, oh, we're at 3:59, let's wrap up. 4 hours, boom, we're done. I was very good about that. And I retained that kind of punctuality and consistency for 6 to 8 months. And I took a hiatus. I was getting really burned out with work and everything, and something had to give, work or the stream, and unfortunately, you know, the stream isn't going to pay the bills, so it had to give way while I sorted some personal things out. And I came back, and I was relatively consistent. I had most days, I think I did have a couple off days once I came back, or I wasn't doing it every day. Eventually, I actually worked those days back in, and I started streaming every day again. And then over time, that kind of waned, and I went back to having some off days. And around the time I started Metal Gear Solid, I was back in that phase of streaming every day. In fact, I was streaming more than ever, because Saturdays and Sundays, I was streaming twice. So the original cadence, when I started doing the Metal Gear Solid series, had me playing, or had me on Monday and Wednesday doing coding streams, which I really enjoyed, but well, we'll get into that. I really enjoyed the coding streams, but I was doing those Mondays and Wednesdays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was playing Dwarf Fortress because the Steam release had recently happened. On Friday night and Saturday night, I was playing Caves of Cud. And on Saturday morning and Sunday morning was the Metal Gear Solid time slot. And Sunday night was Genshin Impact. So that was my cadence there. Very busy. I didn't leave a lot of other free time for things, which was part of the issue, basically. As I was going through this, you know, kind of, even though it's only been 5 months, my entire kind of position, like where I'm at in life, where I'm at as a streamer and everything has changed, right? And I think it's interesting to see how a short, relatively short project of about 5 months of replaying these has really captured two very different snapshots of my life. So the reason this is relevant as a bit of a post-mortem to the series is because I've already mentioned that this series is really important to me. It has been for the majority of my life. I was born in '89, and I started with Metal Gear Solid when it came out. So it's been there for more of my life than it hasn't. Oh, I did hear a vehicle. I knew it. Hold on. Let's grab you. Let's check this out. So this series has been there for more of my life than it hasn't. And this is yet another way in which this series is going to basically leave an impact with me. In some ways, it's going to give me more memories, more things that I'm going to be able to carry with me forward. It may sound weird, it may sound dumb, it's just a game, right? But it does mean a lot to some of us. Like, there are certain things that some people can get out of games that maybe not everyone can relate to, but, you know, that's one of the things that makes this special to me, and why I've kind of felt like I wanted to do this post-mortem. I'm just gonna wait for them to drive. So we're gonna chill here for a bit. So, as I mentioned, when I first started this out, the snapshot of my life was I was not happy with my job, but I was maintaining well enough. I was not necessarily happy with my life, but I was maintaining well enough. I was doing those everyday streams. I was pretty consistent for a while, actually. But there were a lot of things that I felt lacking, and there were a lot of ways in which I was unhappy that I wanted to do better. And this kind of culminated in this burnout that I deal with, this struggle that I constantly deal with, this depression and everything that I deal with, started to get the better of me again. And I began to be really inconsistent with my streams, missing more and more streams more regularly. And it got to the point where I ended up phasing them all out except for these. So I really do enjoy streaming. I wish I could stream more, but I also reached that point where I don't have the energy. I don't have the mental fortitude to deal with it sometimes. And it's not, I'm not here looking for sympathy points. I'm just saying it how it is. You sometimes reach that point where you just don't have the energy to deal with something, even if it's something that, by many standards would be deemed easy, would be deemed fun. And again, this is fun to me. I do enjoy it, but there are times where you just run out of that energy. And, that's why the new snapshot here is that I'm in this position where I'm only streaming Saturdays and Sundays right now. As much as I keep saying I want to reintroduce some other days, I've been doing only Saturdays and Sundays for a while now because it's all I've really had the energy for. However, despite that, I've found that many of these Metal Gear Solid streams have gone well above the 4-hour mark. Now, I still roughly targeted 4 hours every time. I made that kind of the minimum for the most part. There's some exceptions. But even though that was still my target, there were plenty of streams that went well over. Essentially, with the earlier games in the series, Metal Gear Solid, 2, 3, even 4. Well, 4 had a unique way because I could do one act per stream. But with those games, particularly the first 3, I should say, I would target 4 hours, but then I know, for instance, well, I'm at the end of the game, and if I go for 5 or 6 hours, I'll beat the game instead of having a really short session next time. So I would add in a couple longer streams from time to time, but for the most part, I was targeting those 4 hours. Now, as I got to this game in particular, although I did some with Peace Walker as well, I started adding in longer and longer sessions, and as I mentioned, I had a few sessions where I loved this game so much that I couldn't resist doing the stream and going and working out and stuff, which that's actually a component I want to talk about. But I'd go work out and everything and eat, and then I'd come back later on the same day and say, all right, we're going to do side ops now, or we're going to do some more progress now, because I just can't resist playing this. So that says a lot. With as burned out and as difficult as some aspects of my life are, I couldn't resist the call of this game. So let's continue down this train of thought about, the snapshots of my life, where I said that I was previously dealing with things. I was kind of able to just stay afloat. Well, things have gotten a lot rougher for me. Again, I'm not looking for sympathy points. I'm just stating the truth of it. Things have gotten a lot more rough for me. My burnout with work, for instance, has reached levels that it's never been at before. So I'm finding it really difficult. It's gotten to a point where I'm actually getting professional help. And that's, one of these components that's forever going to be associated in my mind. When I think about Metal Gear Solid now, I can think about the time in my life where I've had problems for years now, and I've known that I've had problems, but I've never actually done anything about them. And there are reasons for that. There are some of the mental struggles that I deal with also lead to that kind of behavior of knowing that you have a problem but not doing anything to fix it. I'm not going to go into the... Ooh. Golly. I feel bad for him. I'm not going to go into all the details of that. It's not necessarily related, but some of those issues, as I said, can result in that kind of behavior where you know there's a problem and you desperately want to fix the problem, but you just can't do it. You don't even have the energy to fix the problem that's causing you misery. So this game can forever be associated with a time in my life where I finally started getting help and trying to fix these problems. So that's a very positive thing that, you know, I can always think about with this game, right? So that's one thing that why this whole topic is kind of relevant as a post-mortem to the series, is like tying it to real things in my life. Because as I look back at the series, I can tie this series to other events in my life as well. So it is very relevant to me. And part of why something like this, as simple as me streaming this a couple times a week, might seem to an outsider, I hope it starts to make a little bit of sense why it holds such a special place to me, and why this recent project of streaming all these games does hold a really special place to me. I know I just said the same thing kind of twice, but I mean, the series holds a special place in my heart, and then this recent project also does. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So the change in my streaming cadence, as well as actually getting help and trying to work on these problems. I do talk about it a lot, and I've kind of mentioned it a few times, but I would like to start streaming more. Maybe it will happen. Maybe it won't. Who knows? There are honestly times where I think about not streaming, but I really do enjoy doing it. So it's difficult. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say on that. So let's back up a little bit now, and let's talk about where it all began. Metal Gear Solid. Let's focus in on the games a little bit more now. And we're going to talk about this from two perspectives. We're going to talk about this from, the position it holds in my life, and we're going to talk about it from the, perspective of how do I want to word this? We're going to talk about the position it holds in my life, meaning going back to when I first played the game and all the memories and stuff I have of it. But we're also going to talk about just what I think of the game and of the franchise and stuff as a whole, right? So they're two different components that I want to try to address. You're not looking at me, are you? Weird. Okay, anyway. So first of all, let's talk about kind of why it already holds a special place in my heart, which there's going to be a little bit of overlap, but it's not going to be complete overlap here. I've told this story many times throughout this project, as I'm going to keep referring to it, that I started playing Metal Gear Solid in the 90s. I remember seeing the demo for it. They had a partnership with Pizza Hut. As a kid, I didn't really have pizza very often. We just didn't do it a lot as a family. And if we did, we would usually go to Cece's Pizza or something and eat there. So we never really had Pizza Hut. But I remember seeing this partnership and seeing that, hey, you can get this demo disc through Pizza Hut, and begging my parents, please, we have to get Pizza Hut. We have to get Pizza Hut. And I still remember that feeling. I kind of remember the exact day. I can't put the date to it, but I kind of remember being outside, literally waiting on the Pizza Hut delivery, and being so excited to have the demo disc for this game, or for Metal Gear Solid. And I don't remember if it came out before the game or not, but I didn't have the game. At the time, I was 9 years old, and you kind of ask your parents for a game, and if they get it, they do. If they don't, they don't. Especially a mature game, I couldn't just walk in and buy it with allowance or anything, right? So if they get the game for me, they do. If they don't, they don't. So I had to wait quite a while to play it, and I actually ended up playing it at a friend's house for the first time in full. And this is a person who was my best friend for most of my childhood years, and we grew apart around the time I went to high school. I was a couple years older than him, so that's why I say I went to high school. We kind of grew apart as we lived further apart, and it wasn't terribly far apart, but it was harder to actually get together and hang out and stuff, and there's only so much you can talk on the phone and all. So we started growing apart, but I have very fond memories of our friendship. You know, as I said, that was my best friend growing up for, most of my childhood years, and I have so many great memories there, and sharing that experience of Metal Gear Solid with that friend is something I will always cherish as long as my memory continues to work, as long as I can remember the experiences. So this is part of why it holds such a special place in my life. I remember the feeling of playing the game as being something like I had never experienced anything like this before, right? I'd obviously played many other games. I had played Final Fantasy VII prior to Metal Gear Solid coming out. So a highly story-driven game was not completely new, but I had never seen something that was done to the level of Metal Gear Solid, with the full voice acting through the entire... Oh, come on. With full voice acting through the entire... Okay, this is gonna be good. Yep, that's why I said it was gonna be good. I wanted them to blow up, though. No, that's not what I wanted, guys. I wanted the stealth PP. I know it's not actually PP, but... yeah, I'd never experienced something quite like that before, where we had full voice acting through the entire story. The movies were many miles above what Final Fantasy VII provided. You any good? No. The movies were so much better than anything that Final Fantasy VII had. And again, the full voice acting, the level of detail of the characters, the character development throughout the story, the twists and turns. I had never seen anything like this. This was something mind-blowing to us in the 90s, right? And that's another reason why it holds such a special place. It was one of the first times where we saw this is what games can really be capable of, right? And it set the bar, because now when someone else came out and said, hey, we're gonna do a story-driven game, you knew Metal Gear Solid exists. Can you stand up to Metal Gear Solid? And of course the answer in most cases was no. That doesn't mean the game is perfect, but it really did set the bar and change gaming, right? Because other developers, they knew they had to pay attention to this. They couldn't ignore what Metal Gear Solid did. Maybe they don't want to be as crazy as Metal Gear Solid, but they couldn't ignore what it did because they're going to get left in the dust, right? So I think that's part of the reason it holds a special place for me, is because I was there when that happened. I was there when I got to see it help shape the industry. And that's pretty cool. We going to the power plant? I probably don't want to go to the power plant. Let's go back that way. Just kind of running around and chilling. Gameplay, as a child, this was the first stealth game I'd ever seen. So the idea of a game where your objective was actually to not be spotted, your objective was to, sneak by undetected and be a spy, be a cool agent man, that was another thing that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. and it really flipped the script. And I know that was the case with Metal Gear in 1987, because even back then, every other game was an action game, and Metal Gear had the balls to say, I'm not going to be an action game. I'm going to be a stealth game. For me, Metal Gear Solid was my first time learning that that was a thing you could do. And, you know, I thought it excelled. Now, I will be a little critical and say that as someone in 2023, I don't believe it held up as well. However, many people, and I know this because I watch a lot of playthroughs and streams of first-time players in 2022, 2023, and so on, because I'm in the future. No. I watch a lot of these playthroughs on YouTube and stuff, and I see a lot of people who wholeheartedly agree or suggest that they think it has aged perfectly well and it holds up today as well as it always did. I don't truly believe that. I think there are some control issues and such that would be better if it were remade. Personal opinion. Not everyone's going to agree with that, but I think Metal Gear Solid 2 is really where the games age much better. So I do think there are some issues there, but what is critical is the story, the characters. That has aged very well. That is something that we can still look at, we can still enjoy, we can still relate to, etc. So replaying that here is something I like to replay every few years, not as frequently as some other games, but I do like to replay it every few years. And that was oh, those are birds. That was a great time, a great revisit to a game that it had been a few years since I last replayed, so re-experiencing these things was as fun as it's always been for me. So I really enjoyed that. Moving forward to Metal Gear Solid 2, where that kind of fits into my life. You know, I was obviously a few years older, not quite in high school, like middle school. I had moved away from the aforementioned best friend, but we still were in pretty regular contact at the time. We hadn't really grown apart yet. But I had another friend who was one of my best friends at the time, and he was the one I knew with a PlayStation 2. So when Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, basically this was also the age of Blockbuster, right? So back then, we would, if we were going to each other's place, we'd often go to Blockbuster and rent a new game that we could play if we're going to be there for a day or two. That way we'd both get to experience something new. Well, I saw this Metal Gear Solid 2 game sitting in Blockbuster, and I was like, hey, we have to play this. You don't know what Metal Gear Solid 2 is? Dude, you're going to love this game. It's so good. It's so good. Like, I know the first one. I can tell you all about it. Let's get this. So we did. And I still remember what it was like sitting in there with my friend as we played through this together and experienced the tanker. And he has no idea who these characters are, but I'm like, oh my god, that's Snake. That's Otacon. He's back. I love Otacon. You know, and as we finished the tanker incident, like, Ocelot, what? He's turning into liquid. What's going on? This is crazy. And then losing my mind as I heard, you know, this is Snake. Or no, he didn't say this is Snake, but it's Colonel's voice, and he talks to Snake, and then we hear him respond, but it's like, wait a minute. First of all, I'm losing my mind that it's Colonel's voice. My friend has no idea who that is, right? But I'm having to try to explain it to him. So like, whoa, that's Colonel. This is crazy, right? And then after that, hearing this guy they're calling Snake, but it's clearly a different voice. Like, even my friend, he just heard Snake on the tanker. He knows that that's not Snake. So we're both losing our minds a little bit about that one, trying to figure out what's going on. And I distinctly remember certain things like getting to the president and having to shoot the Nikita and trying to explain to him, like, yo, you did this in the last game. There was this like whole section where you had to fly a missile through and hit this thing. It's just like this. It's crazy. And I was actually telling him all these things that were similar, but I never made the connection that it was intended to, you know, that what we learn about with GW and S3 all the crazy stuff that we get into, right? I never made that connection until we got to the end of the game, and it was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I have a, you know, it puts me in a very kind of pleasant time of my life where, you know, I was experiencing this game with a friend and getting to tell him about the first game and get him into this series and everything. It really does put me back into another just very positive time in my life. So, once again, that game holds a special place to me. And when I finally got my PlayStation 2 and my copy of Metal Gear Solid 2, that's one of, if not the most played games I had for that console. I ran that game so many times. I remember just sitting up, running through, getting dog tags over and over. I remember this was back in the day when Adult Swim had like Cowboy Bebop and stuff on at night, when it was kind of a new thing. And I remember watching those animes, and it would be, you know, like 11, 12 o'clock, it'd be midnight, you know, and then I'd get done watching those, and then I'd be like, all right, let's do a tanker run and get some dog tags or something now. I remember just spending so much time on that back in the day, and I love it. Like, I wish I could be in that kind of position in my life again. It was such a simpler time, and I don't mean to bring things down because I'm being very positive right now, but I often use this kind of language, and it's just me being real about where I'm at in my life. I often say things like, I didn't hate my life then, you know, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So, thinking about that, it does bring me back. That's part of why nostalgia is very difficult for me, because, as I said, I didn't hate my life back then. So, not to, you know, keep things on a negative note, so let's kind of move on from there. Can you hear me? Anyone gonna take this? I hope. Let's not get spotted this time. Oh, he's looking where I was at. I like it. So, many things about Metal Gear Solid 2 stuck with me. I really liked the theme of the Patriots, the information control and all that. I was, what was I, 12? I wasn't too young to appreciate it entirely, but I was definitely, well, how am I trying to say it? I wasn't so young that it just all went over my head, but I was definitely too young to get the full appreciation out of it, but I knew I was, you know, witnessing something amazing. And even back then, I always loved that conversation with GW. And that's obviously one that's, you know, now there's all these YouTube videos, like the most profound moment in gaming, right? People love that conversation. And it's something that's stuck with me for a long, long time. So there's a lot of moments like that in the game, and I've mentioned it plenty of times, but the post-credits sequence of the Patriots all being dead for about 100 years was just mind-blowing. At the time, I didn't know this, but that was supposed to be the last Metal Gear Solid game, which is just ballsy to end on that cliffhanger. So I was just waiting. I was like, I need another one of these because I need to know what's the answer to that. How does that work? What's happening? This is crazy. And so I replayed that game over and over again. I did every Easter egg I could find. You know, I just abused that game. I love it. Replaying it now is the same as always. I replay that game quite often. I've played it many times on stream. It was one of the earliest games I played on stream, where I used to do, I did a lot of dog tag runs. I did a lot of longer runs. I pulled it back, so that was in 2020. I did some more runs in 2021. I've played it quite a bit on stream. I always love revisiting that game. To me, the gameplay does hold up very well. There are a lot of good reasons to play that game even today, because some of the story elements are still relevant. So being able to share that, and now it's actually on YouTube, so if anyone ever does care to watch it, it's there. You can enjoy it.
Enemy presence detected. The map has been updated.
Alright, so moving on to Metal Gear Solid 3. This one sits at a bit of a weirder time in my life, where I'd kind of grown apart from my other best friend that I mentioned, and from the first one, And the second one, I think this was around the time he kind of went into a different place in his life. I don't think he quite moved away yet, but we started going to different schools. And I think he was going to a private school. And that started to make us grow apart a little bit because we didn't see each other as often. And I mean, that's not really a reason to grow apart per se, but that's kind of how it worked. We didn't see each other as often. And eventually he did move away, and it was probably somewhat around the time of Metal Gear Solid 3. Maybe not too long after that. And he moved across the country, so we basically had no interactions, no, person-to-person interactions at that point. So Metal Gear Solid 3 for me was much more of a personal experience, an independent experience. And that's okay, but there are some downsides to that as well. One of the things is I went into it not knowing too much about it, which is often how I go into games. That's how I prefer to go into games today. But I was a little disappointed by that. As the person I was, like at 15 or whatever, I didn't really like the idea of the older technology and stuff. I thought it was kind of boring. I like the high-tech stuff. So I thought it was a little boring to go to the 1960s. I didn't understand like the James Bond references and stuff with the design of the game, so that didn't have an impact on me like it did for a lot of people because I'm not really a movie person. So there are, multiple things going on there with reasons why it didn't click with me as much, but there were things like the password, like the code, the phrase, who are the Patriots, right? Oh, hey, we're going to talk about the Patriots some more. Yes, that's what I want to hear, right? But that was part of the thing that bothered me a little bit too, that I guess I should have always considered that, if this is an older, this is an earlier time setting, then maybe we're learning about the origin of the Patriots. But to me, I wanted that continuation from Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was a little disappointed that I wasn't getting that. So while I did enjoy the game, I was disappointed in various aspects about the game, and it set all right with me, but it never quite set as well as the other games. And in a way, that influenced how I approached Metal Gear Solid 4. When that game came out, I didn't have a PlayStation 3, I didn't know anyone with one, so I couldn't play it. I ended up doing something that I normally wouldn't do, because I kind of assumed, like, I loved Metal Gear Solid. I knew that I loved Metal Gear Solid, but I kind of thought, I don't know if I'll ever play this game, right? So, Metal Gear Solid 4 is out. I love the series. I don't know if I'll ever be able to play it. So, how about... Actually, I might even be wrong. I might not have intentionally been looking up something from 4. But I did end up finding a video from 4. I don't fully remember the context, but, YouTube is out at this time. And I saw... Yeah, I don't think I was intentionally looking up spoilers, now that I think about it. It said Rex versus Ray. I thought this was going to be someone, comparing the two Metal Gears and just saying, hey, which one is better? Which one do you like more? It turns out it was the Rex versus Ray fight. And while that's a big spoiler, that was the moment where I knew that I had to have that game. I absolutely had to have Metal Gear Solid 4. So not long after that, I got a PlayStation 3 and I got Metal Gear Solid 4. And personally, I thought it was amazing. The game gets some criticism today, but in terms of the amount of fan service and all, I was never really a big fan of the Metal Gear Solid 4 Raiden. But I do think the game is absolutely amazing. I do like the fan service personally. I think that it did a great job in resolving so many elements of the series that had been left open, and the ending was just absolutely beautiful and incredible. When I got that game, I had some of my friends come over and play the game. I was like, hey, you need to come over and play this game. I had one friend binge it in one sitting, basically, which is a lot. I had another friend who didn't actually have Metal Gear Solid experience, so we sat there and watched all the movies from all the Metal Gear Solid games, and then had him play Metal Gear Solid 4, and he loved it. Like, I had to share this with people. I loved it so much. And that one, because it's not accessible on other platforms, it was very difficult to replay that one again. I had a lot of problems with it on getting it to work for the stream, as you may have noticed if you watched it. And because of that, I haven't replayed that one nearly as much. Back when it came out, I did a big boss run. I did like everything I could in the game. I did replay it around 2020, not on stream, but like before I even started these streams, before I started this alias, I did replay it. And I remembered how much I loved the game, but doing it again here, when I had all the context of freshly playing the other games, really meant a lot to me and really just helped remind me of why I like it so much. It is a lot of movies. There's a lot less gameplay than a lot of games have. But it's so good. What's there is so good. Peace Walker. Peace Walker's an interesting one. I started playing it one time with the PSP, and I was not really having fun playing it because of the controls and everything. I don't really like mobile gaming that much. Portable gaming. Wow. It's extremely loud. Anyway, I don't really like portable gaming, so I wasn't really enjoying trying to play that, and I kind of abandoned it early on. I've talked about this, but eventually, during my original playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 5, I went back and started looking at Peace Walker stuff and eventually watched a full playthrough, but I never really had all the context and everything as I was playing through 5. So, and anything I did watch back then, I kind of forgotten it before now. So Peace Walker felt very much blind to me in a lot of ways. Like, I remembered some bits and pieces. I knew because of 5 and everything, like Paz is going to steal Zeke, like certain things are going to happen, but I didn't have all the context and it felt very blind. I did quite enjoy playing through it. There's some frustrating moments. There are some elements I don't like, but I did quite enjoy playing through it. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad to be able to say that I have that under my belt now. And finally, that brings us to this, Metal Gear Solid 5. The thing that started this all for me, because I wanted to re-experience this in full, and well, that's what I did. It's a big undertaking. As I mentioned, Ground Zeroes was the 1st of April. I started this Phantom Pain on the 2nd of April. I finished it yesterday on the 14th of May. It's been a long time. The average stream was... Actually, I have numbers because I was curious. I took every video and just took down the times. I actually wrote a little program to do it. But I took every video and added up the times, basically. The total duration of the videos. Remember, that removes things like BRB screens and stuff, but it does include me rambling like this. Total duration was 80 hours, 20 minutes, and 29 seconds over the course of 16 streams. The average duration was 5 hours, 1 minute, 16 seconds. Now, that average is interesting because there were some streams where, for instance, I came on to do a second stream at night, and I did 2 to 3 hours of side ops, for instance. So there were shorter streams, but there were also a lot of 6 to 7 hour streams. The last 2 sessions of this were 7 hours. Had I been doing my 4-hour sessions, we'd still be in this. We'd be nowhere near done. If the average stream was 5 hours something, we're missing quite a bit. So I think it's an interesting position to be in, just to recognize how much goes into beating this game, at least the way I play it, while focusing on things like side ops and such. But I think it's a worthy experience. It ties so many things in the series together, even though we thought 4 did that. This also ties so many things in the series together and introduces the origin of many of the concepts that we've seen in games like Metal Gear Solid 2, and Metal Gear Solid 4. Essentially, with Zero and Skullface in this game, their motivations and their plans and such, right? Those outline the motivations for other characters. And really what we've actually learned between Peace Walker and this is that the boss really outlined everything, because everyone just has misinterpretations of the boss's will. But that's a whole other situation. We're not going to go fully into that, but I mean, I feel like I've talked a lot about this. Did he just wave? That was kind of wholesome. I feel like I've talked a lot about this game already, and I don't want to go longer than necessary because it's already been a while. One of the things I want to comment on, though, is the narrative. I do feel like the narrative suffers a bit in this game at times, and I think it's a symptom of it being an open world game. The narrative suffers because you can be in the middle of something highly important, like rescuing Code Talker. The chopper is attacked by metallic archaea, and it goes to a to be continued screen. And then you can free roam for 40 hours if you want, before you ever have to address the problem of the chopper being attacked as you're in it. Those are areas where I feel that the narrative does suffer a bit. And again, I think it's a bit of a symptom of it being an open world game, but I think gameplay-wise, this game is where it's at. I think it has the best, most fun, just raw gameplay. But the problem is, as I mentioned earlier, when you get to 100%, there's not really that much to do at times. It feels like, well, I've already done everything there is to do. What else? I mean, what do you expect me to do now, right? I guess there's still things here I don't have unlocked, but what else do you expect me to do, right? I mean, I've got all the missions done. I've got all the side ops. I guess I can go grind for hours on the on collecting nudes from the FOB missions and stuff, but that's really about it. And we can get into meta-analysis and all that. But what I think really matters is the journey of this game. This game is, again, a very long experience. It took me 80 hours on this run, and I was 70-something%. But the journey through those 80 hours is beautiful as you develop these bonds with characters and your buddies get better and more efficient as you unlock new areas. Granted, there's only really 2 areas, but as you go through them and say, oh, I never went to this mansion thing yet. I never went to this part of the map, OKB0. It's like it drip feeds you new things at a very good pace, actually, and kind of always makes you feel like there's something new around the corner. And while the narrative may suffer at times, when the narrative picks up, when the narrative is doing things, it's very strong. It is Metal Gear Solid. We get huge developments. Now, one potential criticism is offloading so much of the narrative to tapes, where we sit in a chopper and listen to 30 minutes of tapes or 50 minutes of tapes. That could be a criticism. It's not perfect by any means, but I really like the way some of those tapes are done, particularly the secret recordings. The secret recordings really make you feel like you're just listening to something that wasn't meant to be heard, and I love that. I also love the hints that the game places about the true identity of Venom Snake versus Big Boss. I talked about some of these yesterday. Trying to remember which ones I mentioned. Huey reacting to his face, but you can attribute that to, well, it's been 9 years and his face is all cut up. The AI pod doesn't seem to recognize him. Volgan, Man on Fire, seems to back off, as if he realizes this isn't Big Boss. We have the DNA test being wrong, although we find out about that so late in the game that it's close enough to the reveal that it's not as big of a deal, but it's interesting, right? The DNA, I don't know if I said Eli or Liquid, but the DNA test of Eli/Liquid. But there were some early hints in the beginning of the game that I never really talked about. For instance, when you first meet Ocelot, it's almost as if he's trying to convince you. He says, "You know who I am." He tells you. He says a line which I think works whether you're Venom or Big Boss, but now that we know who Venom is, I think it's interesting to reframe the line where he says, "Go and let the legend come back to life as Big Boss," or return as Big Boss, right? And let the legend come back to life. Return as Big Boss. In the sense of Venom Snake, it's almost like an order, like, hey, be Big Boss, right? We hear some of the early cassette tapes where Venom and Ocelot are talking, and he's like, what do you remember? He's like, I have bits and pieces, but the details are fuzzy, right? We could attribute that to a 9-year coma, but now that we know the truth, we can also attribute it to him not being Big Boss, so certain details won't be there, despite the fact that they ran him through conditioning, right? So I think that's an interesting hint. The language center of his brain being pressed on by the horn, as it were. So we need interpreters, despite the fact that he used to know Russian. Again, there are people online who I've seen say that that's not really where the language centers are all at, so it's not fully realistic. I don't know the truth of that. I'd have to look into it. But regardless, I think you can accept that on its basis. Like, oh, you've got a thing in your head, it's messing with your brain, you forgot the language, right? But now from the context of Venom, maybe he never knew Russian in the first place. So it adds, there's so many nice details, and as I was playing through this, I'm not spoiling it, but I'm thinking about like, ooh, that was interesting, because I know about Venom, I know what that really means, but somebody else wouldn't. So I was having to, keep that all under wraps, but it's very interesting. One thing that's cool is Ground Zeroes, which we didn't really talk about. It's a good bridge between the two, but one thing I find really interesting is in Ground Zeroes, the medic is there, but you never really see his face. He's got his gloves on, you only see his gloves. But some people actually predicted the plot twist of Venom Snake not being Big Boss from Ground Zeroes alone. And one of the ways they did it, I don't know everything, you could look this up yourself if you're interested, but one of the ways they did it was by noticing that the medic's voice is pitched down. And if you pitch it back up to the normal voice, it's Kiefer Sutherland. So there's some interesting things going on where this twist was not just made up for Phantom Pain, it was planned all the way back in Ground Zeroes, and they knew what they were doing. Which is very interesting. There's so many things I could go on about. I feel like I've already been a bit scattered, but it's fun to just kind of talk about just all these different games and stuff, and some of the last tapes, say what you will about Zero and the Patriots and all that, but hearing him visit Big Boss, I find that one really sad, like genuinely sad. And I think this game, despite the sometimes weaker narrative, I think this game does convey a lot of really sad moments if you actually start getting into the story and becoming invested. And, maybe not everyone's as affected by Quiet, but I'm somewhat critical of some of the aspects of that, of how Quiet's story is resolved, because why couldn't we do things like Right, or, why couldn't we have Venom learn Diné, Navajo? Like, there are questions that we could, raise and discuss about that. But there is that nobility to the self-sacrifice that she made. You could... Some of it, I think I've heard people say, feels contrived, and I can agree a little bit. They made her keep talking a lot to guide the chopper, just to try to drive home, like, hey, those parasites are going to be active now. She's going to die. It really is like that Phantom Pain. If you're someone like me who uses Quiet, there really was that Phantom Pain in the original release, where the game feels emptier without her. She's just gone now, right? You know, of course, she's back. We could play the mission and all, but it's not quite the same. It feels a little empty, even when you can do that. So I think that's interesting. So I've kind of rambled a lot. I've talked about how this series has impacted my life and how throughout this project of replaying all these games, let me think about something. Okay, no. Throughout this project of replaying all these games, also, by the way, very random, but I'm expecting a package, and I got a notification about 15 minutes ago that it should be here within 30 minutes, so I might have to step away for a moment. I may or may not edit it out, it depends on how long it takes. But hopefully they bring it to my door or something, we'll see. If it's bad, I'll edit it out, because I already have to edit one thing out. But anyway, where was I at? Oh, this project, because I'm trying to wrap up, that's why I mentioned it. This project was a big undertaking. I've explained like the snapshots of my life and how my life has changed since starting this. I can't wait to get on to something else now, to start up a new game, to start up a new project. I'm not yet sure what it's going to be. I was actually thinking about playing some of the Splinter Cell games, which I haven't played in a very long time, but I love those games, the original Splinter Cell games, through like Chaos Theory and stuff. I'm waiting on Final Fantasy 16, which is about a month out. I kind of want to play Deus Ex Human Revolution. Maybe I'll just play some Noita. I'm not really sure yet, but I'm thinking a lot about it, and I can't wait to get to the next project now. This was the longest full project I've done. Last year, 2022, I did Elder Scrolls 3. Well, actually, late 2021 into 2022, I did a lot of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 10, 10-2, 7 Remake, 9, 12, and 15. All back to back to back. After that, I did Elder Scrolls 3, which as a single game might have taken longer than this. I can't quite recall. And I also did Elder Scrolls 4, which again took quite a while. But this game was definitely one of the longest single games I've done that wasn't like an ongoing open-ended co-op experience. And obviously this project, doing all of these games, probably was the longest overall project that I've done. So it feels really good to start something, stick to it, complete it. Back to my mental issues, I do have problems with that. I do have problems with setting goals, even for things I really want to do. As silly as it might sound in context of like streaming a video game, setting my mind to saying, we're going to do this project, we're going to play all these games, and then actually doing it it feels good, because I often fail at that kind of thing. Again, even when it's things I really want to do. One of the other things I actually failed to mention is during this time, those snapshots of my life, I started working out again since starting this project. I've started fixing my sleep schedule, where I'm going to sleep at the same time and I'm getting up at the same time every day, within like 30 minutes or so of that target time. So I'm making a lot of positive changes to my life to try to better myself. And again, that's something I can always associate with this series, which is just something, that's the way my brain works. I have a very associative memory, and I like that I can associate it with a series that already means so much to me. So, is there anything else I want to add? We'll see what I play next. I miss some of the other stuff I was doing, I have to be honest. I was having a lot of fun with Caves of Cut. It kind of fell apart when everything else fell apart. Dwarf Fortress is one of my favorite games ever, but that kind of dropped off. The coding streams, I was running through a roguelike tutorial in Rust, and we were pretty far into it and making some pretty interesting things, but that's since fallen apart. There's so many of these. And Genshin Impact. I really like Genshin Impact, but now I'm multiple patches behind, and that's going to be fun to catch up on. I've thought about doing some not streams, but just offline recordings of that, as I just do missions and stuff to, like Archon quests and stuff to catch up with the patches, so that once the next big patch with the new area opens up, I'll be able to get there without too much extra effort. But, you know, that's another topic. So, you know, I think I've covered the things I want to cover here. There's probably more. I'll probably feel like I missed something. I think I want to try one more thing. So we're going to chill here for just a moment. I will be right back. I probably won't edit this out. Just bear with me. Okay, maybe I will edit that out, but we're back. I think I want to try getting out of here now. I almost just turned my camo off. I wanted to check if I can play as quiet in the main game here without doing FOB stuff. I don't know if there's any other deployment stuff I really want to play with, if I'm being honest. I'll take a quick look. Actually, no, there is. Yeah, so we'll do a couple of quick things here. I still have to listen out for that delivery.
Marker removed.
Yeah, why can't we deploy from here? I swear I found a way to just deploy in the past, but I don't know how to do it anymore. Just pick one of those. Higher versions. Okay, let's remove quiet. Now I'm gonna have to edit this as well, so bear with me. Okay. She is not here, so I guess that's not a thing. We have Cyborg Ninja. Improves speed when sprinting as well as jump distance. And we have Raiden. Now, Raiden and Cyborg Ninja were both in Ground Zeroes, so there's really nothing new to that. I could have used the blast arm and showed that off, but whatever. So we can head in there real quick and just kind of show it off, but I don't think there's much more I want to do after this. I think that's really going to be it for the Post-Mortem. Here in an hour and a half. It's pretty lengthy. I don't know, it's just a little bit of what I'd call heartfelt. I mean, there are some moments in that discussion which are pretty meaningful to me. Maybe meaningful to nobody else. I don't really care, you know, if I'm being honest. Again, I do this stuff primarily for me, with the hopes that somebody else will care, but if you don't, no one's forcing you to watch it. No one's forcing you to be here. But it is bittersweet. I will say that's part of the reason that I wanted to do this as well. One thing I really struggle with is finality. And this is a very perfect example of that finality, where something that's been a part of my life for the past 5 months is now ending. It will be no more. I mean, it doesn't mean I can't revisit these games, but it's ending. Yeah, look at this. So yeah, that always kind of hits me in an interesting way. It goes along with, you know, saying goodbyes or nostalgia. There's various different ways that finality kind of affects me. It makes me a little sad. It's bittersweet. But again, I'm glad to have done this. But yeah, at the same time, just like, why does it have to end? Why? Can I jump up there? It increases speed and what? Whatever. Let's go
Analysis complete.
I don't even have to attack him. Watch this.
Analysis complete.
Nice. I recognize this spot though. This is the first. This is right by Spoogme Keep. And this is where you begin the game. Very good place to end this post-mortem, I guess, isn't it? I really do feel like I'm forgetting something I either wanted to talk about or show, but I don't know. Finality though, like right now I'm thinking about other games and stuff, like how I haven't really played Genshin since my last stream of it. I haven't played most of those other games since the last streams. And even that gives me a lot of, like, kind of sadness in a way. My brain is weird, okay? There's one thing I want to look up, though. Let's see. When was the first Metal Gear Solid stream? I need to know. '7th of January. So yeah, it's been over 5 months. Oh no, it's been 4 months. Because January into February is 1 month. Into March, April, May. So it's been a little over 4 months. It's pretty crazy. Pretty wild. Where's Spoogme Keep? Oh, I went the wrong way. Like, I know where it's at. But I don't want to go in there now if there's a side op. So we'll, call the chopper, we'll get out of here. And that's that. So if you actually, you know, watched any of the series, especially if you watched this and listened to me ramble for over an hour and a half, I really appreciate it. Again, I have no delusions of grandeur about who I am, about, you know, my following or anything. I don't think I'm the biggest streamer in the world or anything, and I'm not necessarily trying to be. I don't know that I would want that. But I do have a lot of fun doing this. And, you know, I'm glad that if you did watch this and you were entertained, I'm glad that I could provide that for you, you know. And, you know, oh, don't shoot the bird. That's mean. Yeah, and if you're a fan of this series too, definitely leave something down below. Let me know a little bit about your experience. I'd love to hear it. So I guess with that said, if there's nothing more I can think to do right now or to talk about or whatever, then we'll probably sign off here. And I think what I'm gonna do, this is the 15th of May right now. Normally I wait 2 weeks, the videos go live 2 weeks after the stream, and I did set the 13th and the 14th to go live 2 weeks after. But I think I'm gonna shift everything up. So there's, I believe, 4 more videos to go that haven't gone live yet. I think I'm gonna shift those up to one will happen today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'll try to make this go Friday. I'll see about the processing on the 2 from this weekend, from the past couple of days, because they are 7 hours. They might take a while to process. But then that'll just, you know, series will be done. Because I had a point where my, like, bad things, mental, you know, bad stuff happened, and as I said, I'm getting help. I'm not trying to just get pity points or whatever. I'm getting help, I'm working on it. But I was at a point where I couldn't even manage to upload these things for a bit, and I got way behind for weeks, and then I put them all up like one day after another, and now there's going to be a random 2-week gap. So we'll try to get that back in order. I'll just try to get these all up, continuing the trend of just one after another. And then, yeah, like I said, we'll see what comes next. It's weird, like I don't want to end it, but I'm going to. So, yeah, if you watch this, if you enjoyed this, definitely let me know. I don't know why you would enjoy this. It's just a weird dude rambling about a game series that he likes too much. But, until next time, have a good day, have a good night, whatever it is, wherever you're at. Take it easy.